As the Hungry Hiker here on YouTube, naturally one of my favorite parts about planning for any overnight backpacking trip is deciding on what backpacking food I'm going to bring with me. When I'm out on trail, I eat everything from store-bought freezer-dried meals to backpacking meals I put together with food items found in the grocery store, and I even dehydrate my own backpacking meals at home using some of my most favorite recipes. Recently, I took a group of students from my online backpacking program for women, the Confident Solo Female Backpacker System, on a 3-day, 2-night overnight backpacking trip over in Eastern Washington to Ancient Lakes. As part of the trip planning process, I had to decide how much food I'd need for the trip and then figure out what backpacking meals and snacks I'd want to eat while I was out there. If you're in the process of planning an overnight backpacking trip, you might even be asking yourself, how much backpacking food should I bring? And what kind of backpacking food should I bring with me? So in this video, I'm going to share with you my entire process of how I put together my backpacking food meal plan for this trip. I'll share with you exactly how much backpacking food I brought with me, show you how I decided what backpacking meals and snacks to bring, and even show you the food I didn't eat and came back home with. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell icon to get notified each time new videos are posted. So here's how I figured out how much backpacking food I needed to bring for my recent overnight backpacking trip. Starting with the trip itinerary, I needed to figure out how many days and nights I'd be out on trail. Then from there, I could figure out how many days worth of backpacking meals and snacks I'd need to pack for this trip. For this trip, we'd be out on trail for 3 days and 2 nights. Starting on Friday morning, we'd hike from the trailhead to the tent site, set up camp, hike down to the river, and then head back to camp and have dinner. On Saturday, we plan to have breakfast at camp and then hike all around the area, have lunch somewhere out on trail, and then head back to camp for dinner. And then on our final day on Sunday, we plan on having breakfast at camp, breaking down camp after breakfast, and then head back to the trailhead before lunch so we could all stop somewhere for lunch together on our way home. Based on our trip itinerary, I'd need lunch and dinner on Friday plus snacks, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks for Saturday, and then breakfast and snacks on Sunday. Broken down, this meant I'd need 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, 2 dinners, a total of 16 snacks, which meant 7 snacks on Friday, 7 snacks on Saturday, and 2 snacks on Sunday, plus an extra meal which I consider part of my 10 essentials. On my meal planning spreadsheet, I noted at the top the number of breakfasts, lunches, dinners, and snacks I needed to pack with me for this trip. The number of snacks I bring on any given trip, whether it's a day hike or overnight backpacking trip, is always hard for me because it's tough to gauge just how hungry I'm going to be while I'm out there. Typically on my first day out on trail for an overnight backpacking trip, I'm usually not that hungry. On day 2, I knew we'd be doing a fair amount of hiking, so I figure I'd probably be hungrier than the first day. Then on our last day, since we weren't stopping for lunch on trail because we were heading straight for the trailhead after breaking down camp, I figured I'd need only 1, maybe 2 snacks in the morning. For this trip, I decided to pack 7 snacks on both Friday and Saturday and pack 2 snacks for Sunday, which would be a total of 16 snacks for the entire trip. Once I figured out how many meals and snacks I wanted to bring with me for this trip, it was time to put together my backpacking trip trail menu by deciding exactly what backpacking meals and snacks I wanted to bring. The actual food I bring with me for any trip is always based off of what I'm currently craving and what I think I'd like to eat while I'm out there. For any backpacking trip, no matter how long or short the trip is, I always pack the food I love. Otherwise, if I'm not excited about the food in my pack, I'm less likely to eat it and more likely to carry it, making it dead weight in my pack. It had been a while since I'd made my Holy Moly breakfast bars, so I decided to make a batch of those and brought them with me to have for breakfast. With breakfast, I always have a Kinko smoothie because it's an easy and tasty way to get fruits and veggies out on trail, so I packed 2 of those, 1 for Saturday and 1 for Sunday morning. Since we would be spending more time in camp in the morning for this trip than what I'm used to, I also decided to bring a couple warm drink options including hot tea and bone broth along with my collapsible cup. For lunch, I wanted to keep it simple and not have to use my backpacking stove and cook lunch. I knew we'd most likely be out on trail hiking during lunchtime and wouldn't have a lot of access to water in this area. For this trip, I brought one of my all-time favorite trail lunches, peppered salami, cheese, and crackers. There's no water or cooking required, and it always hits the spot. For my snacks, I was kind of all over the place. I wanted something sweet, salty, crunchy, and soft. So I brought with me some of my current favorite snacks to enjoy while out on trail. Terra vegetable chips for the salty crunch, almond butter almonds from Trader Joe's, chili spice mango from Trader Joe's, single serving pouches of pickles thanks to Sucker Punch Gourmet, chocolate covered graham crackers from Trader Joe's, milk and dark chocolate covered almonds also from Trader Joe's, a Trader Joe's chocolate bar to enjoy for dessert after dinner at camp, and Chomp's beef sticks. This video isn't sponsored by Trader Joe's, but in my personal opinion, they sure do have the best hiking and backpacking snacks. If you haven't seen it already, make sure you check out my favorite cheap and easy snacks from Trader Joe's video to see some of my most favorite backpacking and hiking snacks. Then for dinner, I did a mix of dehydrated meals I made at home and a couple of my favorite grocery store backpacking meals I've put together. For dinner, I packed a one-pot Thanksgiving dinner, barbecue mac and cheese topped with crispy dillies, which are fried crispy pickles, and one of my spicy chicken soups I dehydrated at home as my backup meal, just in case I was running low on food and hungrier than I thought it would be. I also threw in a couple pieces of focaccia bread to enjoy with my dinners, just because. Once I put together my backpacking trip trail menu, I entered all of the meals and snacks individually into my meal planning spreadsheet. Depending on how long I plan on being out on trail, I can also enter into my meal planning spreadsheet for each individual food item, the number of calories, servings in grams, the number of servings of each food item I packed, and the weight of each food item in ounces. From here, I can easily determine exactly how much my food weighs, the calorie density for each food item, and the total calories I plan on eating each day based off of everything I've entered into my meal planning spreadsheet. So here's all the backpacking food I brought with me for this trip. As a great learning tool to help make the next trip even better, I take notes of the food that I bring with me on each backpacking trip and also the food I don't eat and come back with. This way, I can see just how much food I overpacked or didn't pack enough of. And here's all the backpacking food I came back with after this trip. After coming home from a trip, I also reflect back on how I felt during the trip. Did I have enough food? Not enough? Is there anything I wish I had packed or had more of? Is there anything I wish I hadn't packed? Did I bonk at any given time while I was out there? I used my observations from the trip to help readjust my backpacking meal plan for the next trip with the ultimate goal of not carrying more food than I need, except for the additional extra meal I consider as part of my 10 essentials. For this overnight backpacking trip, I opted to have a no-cook breakfast with my Holy Moly breakfast bars and a no-cook lunch with my salami, cheese, and crackers, but for dinner, I plan to have a warm dinner. Having a warm dinner at the end of a day full of hiking is always something I look forward to and is incredibly satisfying whenever I'm out on trail. To cook, or I should say boil the water for my dinners, I use the Jetboil Stash canister stove. To cook my dinners for this trip, I started by boiling the water in my stove. Then added the boiling water to my meal in a Ziploc freezer bag, gave the food a quick stir with my Sea to Summit long spoon, closed up the bag and put the meal in my DIY backpacking food cozy, and let it sit until my meal was fully hydrated. I really enjoy the Ziploc freezer bag method of cooking because instead of dirtying up my pot and then having to wash it, I can cook my meal directly in the bag my food comes in and then eat my meal out of the bag. This method of cooking also does a pretty good job of being efficient with the fuel I use because instead of letting the stove and fuel run while I cook dinner, I'm only using my stove and fuel to boil water, which in this stove usually takes about 2 minutes. I also brought with me my Sea to Summit Cool Grip X tumbler to enjoy my hot drinks in while at camp, like tea and bone broth. And to store my food in while at camp for this trip, I used a hard-sided bear canister, the Bear Vault BV450. Even though there weren't any bears in the area, we still wanted to keep our food and scented items protected from any critters in the area. Hard-sided bear canisters were not required for the area we were camping in, but there weren't a whole lot of options to tie a food bag like an earth sack to. Just lots and lots of sage bushes. Since this was a short trip and it wasn't a long hike into camp, I figured it was just easier to use the BV450. At the beginning of each day, I put all of the food and snacks I planned on eating that day in a stuffed sack and stored it in the front mesh pocket of my pack for easy access while out on trail. To store all of my trash during the trip, I used one of the used Ziploc bags from my backpacking meal I ate out of during the trip. Trying to decide what to bring with you for your next overnight backpacking trip? Make sure you download my free The Hungry Hiker backpacking gear packing list by either clicking the link up here or down in the video description box below. And if you're someone who wants to start planning an overnight backpacking trip but feel overwhelmed with the whole trip planning process, or maybe you need help trying to figure out where to go, when to go, how to find tent sites and water sources out on trail, worried about getting lost while you're out there, have no idea what gear you'll need, I've created just for you the Hungry Hiker Backpacking Trip Planning Masterclass, a step-by-step guide on how to plan your first or next overnight backpacking trip. The Hungry Hiker Backpacking Trip Planning Masterclass will cover everything in detail from how to prepare, research, and and plan for your trip to the backpacking gear you'll need. This masterclass also includes navigation and trip planning video tutorials and digital and printable trip planning resources along with tips and tricks for first-time solo backpackers. Click the link down in the video description below to get more details about this class and learn how you can sign up. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for new videos every week and hit the bell icon to get notified every time new videos are posted. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy trails and keep on trekking.